changes.
All right, for personnel this evening, we've got 4 in need of approval. The first, Dave Amore, is going to help us out again this spring and remain the softball coach. So I need approval for him.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
3 resignations. Katie McLean resigning from middle school boys track.
Do you have a motion?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
She just wanted to take
I think it's temporary, yeah. Rob Bramlett, resignation as varsity volleyball coach.
I'll make the motion to approve that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Crystal Lemke resigning as the volleyball JV coach.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Approved. Next item this evening will be for the clean up. Apologize, I feel really rude.
Well, I get to see the best part of it now. That's what I was saying, you guys need to speak
It's
louder.
kind of weird.
I know.
You could sit on the other side of the table. And they couldn't see the presentation.
That's our portion. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved. Next item would be balance sheet.
That's gonna be up there for that chili cook-off too. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Any questions by the board on the balance sheet?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
That's just first mention. Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any public comments this evening on the agenda? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which will be our school calendar.
Up for final approval tonight, the 2021 calendar. Through discussion, the teachers had requested a better placement on our second e-learning day, moving that from February 8th to March 8th. And so we did go ahead and make that move. Everything else on the calendar was as presented to you previously, so need approval for the calendar.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2020-21 calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved.
Uh,
A little late to ask.
Go ahead.
Most everything the same as far as second semester starts as the Christmas break.
That's right. Yeah, we gave consideration. One of the other things, the teachers, I think a lot from the high school end, we're looking to see if we can find a way to balance the days in each semester, which is always a bit of an issue with where school starts. So there's, I think, it's 87 days in the first semester, 93 in the second. Ultimately, we decided to stick with that traditional end on the Friday before Christmas, come back the first available date in January. So we thought it over and kept it the same.
I think it makes sense, even though the days are a little uneven, it just makes too much sense.
Yep. Number 8 on the agenda, just so you see the final number on our bus. It could be fairly quickly that we have possession of that new, and to remind you, that is a short yellow with a stop arm. And the nice addition there is it's got the built-in seats for the preschool, so we don't have to keep moving car seats in and out of one of the buses. So that payment is on the claim docket this month as well. Number 9, we did get the LaCrosse kitchen dishwasher fixed. That bill is also included on this docket. We finally did get Miller Doors out, number 10 on the agenda. They have, most of the doors they've finagled at the high school. Again, got them workable. One of the gym doors did require a component be ordered, some expensive items. Between the fixes and the part and the return when they get that part in stock, that total bill will end up maybe around $1,000 to keep those doors latched properly for us. Number 11, the updated CDL clearinghouse policy. That's tonight's the second reading on that. Again, that is a policy produced by the Indiana School Boards Association. So tonight, we need approval for that required policy.
Make a motion to approve that updated CDL clearinghouse policy. Second reading.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
The Town of Wanata Public Library reached out to us and sent us this request asking that you appoint Gayla Porch for a 4-year term for the Wanata Public Library Board.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that. I think she'd be a good addition.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Next on the agenda is the strategic plan presentation. So what I have put together here for us tonight is a plan, a recommendation, ultimately, a strategic planning focused mainly on our current high school building and current high school situation. So I'll get through this. I don't think it'll be long. It's about 24 slides, and then we can talk it over from there. So at this point, after having been here for a year and a half now, I've got several concerns involving LaCrosse High School. They come down into these categories: physical concerns, budgetary, programming, and at the end I'll have a recommendation to provide. Baseline information to help me, along with my observations, are 2 studies, one conducted by Performance Services, who are in attendance tonight, from April 30th of 2015, a facility study, and then a 2018 demographic/tax study conducted by Robert Boyd from Indiana State University. And using those as a reference point, again, along with my observations, is the basis for this strategic outline. Generally, and obviously, the building is showing its age for quite some time. That's not news to anyone. But the process is continuing to pick up pace and hasten rapidly. The HVAC system is just one extremely inefficient area and major financial concern. Financially, it's a concern because of its inefficiency to run. It's an even bigger concern because of what it would cost to repair or replace. Issues with the electrical system. It's been unreliable, and that process is hastened here throughout this past fall and winter. We did get some relief with work from NIPSCO, but they share a lot of concerns with me in regards to the mixed and matched electrical components at that site. So there's been ramifications from that instability throughout the school year that has caused network issues, and because of some of that, we've had some device replacement that's had to take place as well. Another physical concern for me is with time and continually updated laws, the increasing list of grandfathered codes has me concerned with liability exposure for the high school. Going on, continuing on physical concerns. The walls, floors, and doors are such that they're at the point where they have limited the use of some spaces. Plumbing issues have required several fixes. So that aging infrastructure has led to some increased water usage at time and therefore increased billing. The physical layout and limitations create a less than safe visitor management system. And I think we all know that. It's not up to par for the safety required in 2020. As I talked about earlier, we once again kind of got our doors rigged to where they're working good this week, and how long, we don't have much guarantee on how long those types of fixes continue. So safety is a concern. To address a lot of those things, there's limitations that exist to any kind of remodel due to the load-bearing wall system that old building is built on. I've continued and talked at length over the last year and a half about some difficulties in continuing to get long-time maintenance vendors on site willing to work with some of our issues. And I think, again, that ties to their concern for liability. To name a couple, with our HVAC, both Advanced Mechanical and Train tend to tell Brian and I when they're out there that they're very limited what they can do to keep us going. And as you know, the chimney situation, I haven't been able to get somebody there who would. I got somebody to conduct an inspection, but I didn't get anybody to share the inspection results with me. They just kind of walked away from that request and kind of severed their ties with us. So that's where that was left. Another connection of why those vendors are hesitant with us now is just because of our distance. We're so far away from meeting code in that building in a lot of different ways. Educationally, it's known as the sanitary schoolhouse rule, which dictates square footage, temperature, humidity, and things in the building such as acceptable levels for many materials, chemicals, molds, those types of things. So I get a little concerned from vendors who say that they just as soon not be associated with some of those fixes. Budgetary concerns of LaCrosse. Those are three potentially large cost item areas for me in the short and long term perspective. One, that the electrical system would be very cost prohibitive to fix and fix properly. The HVAC system, both from a reliability and efficiency standpoint, it costs us a lot to heat that building. But even more so is if something goes out on that unit and needs replaced, it is a major cost, and later I can have performance services fill in around that on what those costs could potentially be. So it's just, and then the third part of that budgetary concern is if either one of those two things go out and I can't educate students in that building, the cost incurred of what else do I do with them? Where do I house them? I did got some pricing on portable classrooms, $70,000 for a lease for a year, for a couple classrooms, so that's cost prohibitive and very concerning to the budget as well. A little bit less immediate, maybe lower impact budget concerns, but I have to ask myself the question as the person trying to do right with our budget. Are the nickel and dime maintenance costs, the poor efficiency, but how much just slow erosion to our budget is taking place? And then I ask myself the question, the decisions I make, do they help or do they hinder our long-term financial health? The decisions we make today, how impactful is that? Another budgetary concern, enrollment. Obviously that's been a hot topic in education. And we have to ask the question down there, does that current facility help or hurt with our numbers for enrollment? The static to declining enrollment trend is hindering growth to both our short and long-term budget. Next area, programming concerns. And that falls into 4 phases from my perspective. Physical, enrollment, staffing, and proximity. And by programming, I mean what we can offer our kids. What are we required to offer them? What are the extras that we can offer them? So the question I have, does the physical layout of the building prevent us from offering some things? And the answer to that's a resounding yes. Some curricular resources, and you can easily in the science vocational area and in the arts, there's some examples right there. Those are types of things, an art kiln, CNC machines for vocational type kids. Those are the types of things we can't physically get into the building. And I'm sure there are other examples that we can come up with as well. Small declining enrollment has an obvious impact to our programming, to our offerings. We have to justify our budgetary choices while providing students what they need. And the thing we weigh there is constantly required courses and elective courses, but weighed against class size and budget. Another programming limitation, staff redundancy due to separate campuses. And what I mean by that, specifically, if students were located on one campus, staff could be utilized differently to reduce redundancy on required courses, which would then free those staff members up to offer some elective courses. A simple proximity issue. With where the high school is located geographically, our students are a great distance away from their vocational center of A.K. Smith in Michigan City. With a divided campus, we miss out on opportunities for the older kids and the younger kids to have some co-curricular opportunities. One big example of that is not being able to offer a cadet teaching possibility at the high school. On one campus, we could have older kids interested in an education field have an opportunity to work with our younger kids who would obviously benefit from that extra help. Proximity in regards to other employee/business internship possibilities. There's just not a lot of those things that exist for us down there, as we all know, to where we can pair students up and have them leave the building in a timely manner and get some sort of internship and maybe come back for classes later in the day. And then the last one on proximity, we lack the ability to partner with where we're geographically located, partner with some other schools to share either staff or offerings. As an example, Westville, South Central, they have a couple shared opportunities that benefit kids. They share a staff member and a German teacher to be able to offer that. And then they share kids by one sends kids over for medical terminology, the other one sends kids over, I believe, robotics, maybe, Brian?
Yeah, engineering.
Engineering type class. And so having that proximity for shared possibilities has opened up curricular opportunities for those kids. So that was the next one on programming. So my recommendation before I get to that, here's the lens, my personal driving statements as the superintendent trying to do what I feel is best for the school. What decisions can I make that do the following? These are the things I'm trying to achieve in this position. Provide our students equal opportunities through access to great programming, increase enrollment. That's been a need for this corporation for decades, not years, but decades. Provide a balanced budget. We have to have that. Position this corporation for another 100 years of success. And then I want to properly honor a rich historical legacy, which we have. We have that, and I want to be able to honor that. So those are the things driving me. There's one decision that will be my recommendation that can check all of those boxes on that previous slide. And that the best course of action for Tri-Township is to move our high school up to the Wanata campus as opposed to sinking funds into that current aging structure. With that, I believe firmly we can provide better access to diverse programming because of proximity, redundancy reduction, and shared staffing. We have a much better chance, based on what the data tells us, of reversing the declining enrollment trend at this location. It locates the high school to many more potential students. We've suffered from decades-long declining birth rate in our 2 southern townships. And based on Dr. Boyd's study, his demographic study, that isn't going to change. At this location, I believe there's a higher likelihood of keeping more of our in-district student body. That out-migration is crippling us with our budget, impacting our programming, on and on and on. I firmly believe that if we get kids here specifically, we will maybe bring some kids back from South Central, maybe keep some kids from choosing to go to South Central, because we'll directly impact the trickle-down effect of when an older kid of a family of 4 leaves 8th grade here and they make the decision they're going to South Central. The other 3 siblings end up getting on that same bus and going to South Central. And I really feel if they've got everything here, we can impact that. So that increasing enrollment, along with reducing redundancy, being able to share staff, allows me to balance our education fund while giving students the staff and programming they need. Balanced budget and positive enrollment allow for that 100-year future vision. An unbalanced budget with negative enrollment puts us at risk. It risks everything from limited student opportunity, which is bad on its face, all the way to losing local control. If we put ourselves at risk and we continue to do nothing, and with the political nature from Indianapolis of, again, that there's more talk again of can those small schools consolidate? I feel like we're going to put ourselves at risk for local control. And then lastly, properly honoring a great historic legacy. To do it well, to do it properly, it takes planning and purposeful decision making. If we wait until if the decision gets forced upon us because of a failed heating system, failed electricity, politicians deciding they're going to force something upon us, we might lose the ability to choose how we properly honor that building in LaCrosse that has been a blessing to the community for so long and has blessed so many people that's gotten to pass through there. to add some numbers, just from the perspective of what I quickly see that I can save in the budget by being together as one on this campus. Reducing utilities, telecommunications, internet is a $71,000 savings. That redundancy that I've referenced, I see us, as we're currently constituted, being able to service our kids and service them well, but potentially needing one less science teacher, one less math teacher when we're utilizing our assets properly. That's a savings of $135,000 with benefits and salary. Classified staff, custodial, food service, office staff, paraprofessionals gets another $110,000. Right there, just on those things listed on that page, is over $300,000. Performance services this year, and I'd like for them to give us an idea of just mainly these two things, and a little bit of information on that, the cost of that, if we lost our heating system down there, but the cost of having waited, and the cost if we continue waiting.
Good evening. My name is Tony Kuykendall. I'm with Performance Services. And I might start first just with the comment you said about like what are some of those risks if we do, basically if you do lose the heating system or something happens over at LaCrosse with the electrical system. But our team's kind of been in the building. We haven't done like a full assessment of every single piece because we're not designing to replace it at this point. But what I can share with you is upon looking at that, and I know, actually I should have said, Jerry Rolfson's also with me. He's our senior architect. Matt Peterson's not here, who's one of our lead engineers. They've been through the buildings, and to replace that heating system, the short answer is, you're looking at about somewhere between $200,000 and $250,000. And what you guys currently have over there is like a gas-fired, like forced air system, which is what a lot of us may have in our homes. You have it on a much larger scale for the LaCrosse building. That would potentially repair that system. There's a lot of things that are grandfathered in code requirements that would have to be brought up to speed at the same time. That happens a lot with a lot of buildings that we work in. I think what's more important is we wouldn't recommend replacing it with that same type of system. It's not really the best system just for like learning environments. Traditionally we go with more of a boiler system that has the hot water piped to individual classroom HVAC units. So you have those code requirements you talked about, basically, so you have consistent temperatures, the right humidity levels, the right amount of fresh air. Those would all have to be maintained. So to your point on that piece, we know that much. The electrical system, we can't even actually start with. We don't have an estimate. You actually probably have to go to NIPSCO or some of those folks because it is kind of, it's a great building, it's a cool building, but I would not want to touch the electrical system unless you started over completely. I think these two bullets kind of get back to, or really the point of the conversation is if you do have additional classrooms here to house the high school, well, what would the cost have been? What's the cost of waiting? What's the cost of continuing to wait? So I kind of did like a 5-year look back and a 5-year look forward to kind of give you guys some perspective on that. Bringing the high school over here, if you're looking at about 6, maybe 7 classrooms, which there's a lot of different configurations that could go into that. If you did it 5 years ago, there's probably a savings somewhere in that $750,000 range. And if you would wait another 5 years, you're probably looking at somewhere between $1.1 and $1.2 million of cost escalation. So I think the reason I want to share that with you guys is we do a lot of work in Northwest Indiana, and our company does a lot of construction projects, and really what we've seen over the last 5 years, I kind of would say it's been unprecedented. It's risen at a rate that we couldn't even predict it. And part of that is there's an aging workforce in the general trades. It's a great, every time I go and like my kids and people that we go and talk to at classrooms, I'm like, hey, you should really take a hard look at those trades because one, we need them, and two, they pay really, really well, and you can have a great career doing this, trying to build that younger workforce. Because right now, I think it's somewhere around 50, 55, depending on which trade you're looking at, is the average age. That's impacting jobs, that's impacting the ability for those companies to respond to the work that needs to be done. And so all of a sudden, we're starting to see costs just continue to rise and rise and rise. I do have a copy of, like, one of the indexes we use is like the Turner Building Cost Index, or a lot of times RS Means is another one that we look at quite often. It provides that historical data. But it's safe to say, if you guys look at waiting a little bit longer, at this point in time, we're looking at probably, if you wait another 5 years, somewhere in that 35, 40% cost increase, just based upon the current trends that we're seeing today. Anything I missed there, Jerry, that you would add?
You did an awesome job.
Anything else that, any questions on that piece that I can comment on?
Tim?
When you speak of the current boiler system or current HVAC, what kind of things you come across when you go in? Of course, you think what you know what you're entering. So when you make the qualification of that, you probably upgrade it to a boiler system. When you see a school similar to ours, and as far as age, or I don't know how many other situations you see with the schools as old as ours, but what kind of things have you come across that can go wrong when you're looking at doing or replacing something like that?
You mentioned the chimney, which is definitely an issue. We got to figure
Right.
out a way to vent that system. We don't have a way. That's right out the gate. This is a big ticket item that we don't have a solution for, short of starting over. Also, I think some of the structural concerns too, because we would start all over and basically, repipe it and basically go to each and every single classroom. So you have a lot of those, talking about load-bearing walls. It's not an easy task just to kind of tap into an existing system that's already there and just kind of shore that up, and you're off and running. So we've worked with a lot of like historic buildings and older buildings, and sometimes there's tunnel systems, sometimes there's other avenues to kind of accomplish the end goal. It's not quite as clear, so it would just take some engineering. Probably take, talk about the cost. It takes some cost, but every project has cost. It would just take some cost to kind of do it, and to do it right, because part of our goal, right, kind of our mission, is to make sure that we have code requirements and we have all those different health requirements to make sure that if we come in and do that project, it meets the needs of the current code. That's part of what you get a little bit handcuffed on the design side too, because if you start redesigning some of the plumbing, you're going to have to you automatically have to bring that system, that facility up to current code.
Yeah, that building was, obviously built in a different era. 1915, we're talking about 105 years ago, and we did the structural kind of review of that building, and it's a solid structure. There's no indication of failures or anything like that from a structural standpoint. But back at that time, general contractors who built structures, the concrete floor systems that are in there, they were all proprietary systems, kind of individually done by general contractors who had their own specialized systems. So even to do an analysis on what the loading characteristics of each of those floor plates are is difficult. It takes some real study, and you have to be very careful about what kinds of, when Tony talks about introducing new infrastructure systems in the building, making cuts to the floor, you have to be very careful about what you're doing in that analysis. And all that, of course, drives the cost of renovation up, because you're trying to fit to something that is older, that there's not, there's no blueprints that exist for the building anymore. And it's not common knowledge, the systems that were in place, it's not common knowledge, so there's a lot of investigation needed just to make sure that you can safely do the work.
Has there been, in the same time frame, a lot of code changes that have been more complicated to make, I guess, improvements on, or things that are harder to address? I know where I deal with it, they're a lot more stringent than they used to be 3 or 5 years ago, the different air quality and the things that I come across. So I guess I ask, when you're making some of these changes, whether it's electrical or some of the things that, I know when we spoke about this 5 years ago, the concern was is all the things that would have to be, if we put money into it to try to preserve it, it would be an astronomical number, because of potentially the elevators and all the other things that go into that. So has there been a major shift in any of the coding where they're more or less lenient, or
What would you say, Jerry?
challenging?
With the codes? 'Cause I want to say yes in some areas, but you probably
Well,
have specific.
I think you could safely say that every system in that building, whether it's circulation, vertical circulation in the building, toilet rooms, mechanical, electrical, they all are not up to current codes. Doesn't mean you're not in violation of code, but what it does mean is when you upgrade it, you have to bring it up to code. And so you would have to figure out all those elements and overcome those challenges. So, so creating, vertical circulation to meet handicap accessibility requirements. If you do a full building renovation, you have to bring up to meet code at that time. So
Right.
that means if you renovate a toilet room, you got to create your code clearances. You can't have steps in your toilets like you have currently. Those types of things need to be overcome to bring into compliance. So there's a lot of study that would be needed for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Cost Don't laugh.
It does happen.
That was my ending slide. Save the best for last. Those guys are a lot smarter than I am, for sure. So, I just wanted to make sure we had a grasp of what I'm dealing with there, budgetarily, physically, and programmatically, if you will. So, let's finish up. Brian, you got a principal's report while I pull up Chris's?
Sure. Yep. Let's see. We had 2 Coaches vs. Cancer nights for basketball, one in January for the girls game, one in February 6th, I believe it was, versus Covenant Christian. Raised over $1,000 between the 2 nights for the American Cancer Association. So we did a really good job with that. I think it was over $500 both nights. This weekend, the Leo's Club is honoring our local heroes, so any fire, EMS, police officers can come to the game Saturday night. They're putting goodie bags together. I'm going to honor them at halftime of the game. We had Ashley Vernon and Nicole Green receive gold stars at the ISMA competition, the music competition, state competition. They go down to the finals. I think it's next weekend they go for that. I think fire is next weekend. Bands this weekend. It might be Ashley this weekend. And then today we finalized our unified bowling team. So we are one of 9 schools in the state of Indiana that will have a unified bowling team. So what we're doing is we are pairing with 6 special athletes from the Fort Trine Special Olympics and 9 of our students, and they will compete at the state championship March 14th. That's pretty cool. The state does a really good job. They treat it just like a basketball state championship. So if you win it, you get the big Indiana plaque. So we are one of 9 schools in the open division, and then there's a high school division if you have your own special athletes that you could use. So we're trying to figure out, I think we're close to 4 or 5. If we can use any of ours, we can. But then we have 9 students that have really pushed for this. I'd say Shay Rogers has been on me now since last spring to get this going. So finally got it going. Jenny McCormick's going to help coach it. So it should be, we'll go down to Noblesville on the 14th and get the bowl on there. So it should be a really good experience for the kids. And we talked today and said if we can do this one, then we're going to look at doing unified bocce ball in the fall now and start doing more with it. So the other 2 I think they have is flag football and track and field. So just to see if we get enough kids to do anything like that, we're all looking into more. But I'm really glad that we got started. So that's all I got for
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And then from Mr. Gabriel, he texted me 5th and 6th grade girls basketball. By the way, he's got a sick kid at home, so he was staying tonight. I sent him home. But 5th and 6th grade girls basketball teams doing very well this year. 7th and 8th grade teams also doing well. And Alyssa asked me to present the 8th grade tip-off trophy to the board. and I believe the coach of that team is also present here this evening. So kudos to the head basketball coach.
Novice rookie, but beginner's luck.
Brian?
ACC ran out of money.
I thought you was gonna give that to me for being attendance.
And then congrats to
Nice.
Sydney Dunn and Nevaeh Pinkerton for winning the elementary and middle Wanata Spelling Bee. Congrats to Miranda Wozniak, won the regional Knights of Columbus free throw competition that was held at Portage High School, and will be competing at the state level in Noblesville on March 1st.
Can I add a little note on that, because I thought it was pretty cool? She had 25 of 25 free throws.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty cool.
of all, I mean, she didn't just win her age division, it was,
Great.
Yeah.
she had better than everybody.
Yeah, she sure did. And then we have a busy March ahead with iRead, Book Fair, Fun Fair, Spring Play, and the musical. And we continue, we've had some new students show up. We've had a little bit of enrollment increase with some kids coming over to us.
From where?
Mainly North Judson. They seem to be following somebody, I think. And that is it on the Wanata update. So, that leaves the SA5 reports for January.
Make a motion to do this at reports.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion approved.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Chad, thank you.
Scheduled board meeting would be March 19th. Thank you for everyone's attendance tonight.
What's that? What was it?